I was cleaning the house one morning when I found an old cell phone in the back of a drawer. The phone was dusty and looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I recognized it as my husband Ryan's old phone. He must have forgotten about it when he got his new one. I was curious. I don't know why, but something made me turn the phone on. The screen lit up, and I saw that it still had a bit of battery. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, but I wanted to see what was on it. Maybe there were some funny old photos or messages. Ryan and I were happy, but we didn't talk much about our pasts. Maybe I'd find something nice to talk about later. As I went through the phone, I noticed a few names I didn't know. That didn't surprise me. People come and go in our lives. Then I saw the name Lila. I froze. I remembered Ryan had told me about Lila. She was his ex-girlfriend from years ago, before we even met. I didn't know much about her, and I never asked too many questions. I trusted Ryan and I believed in us. But now, seeing her name made my stomach twist. I didn't know why I was nervous, but something felt strange. Without thinking too much, I tapped on her name. A list of messages popped up. Most of them looked like drafts, messages he had written but never sent. I told myself it was wrong to read them, but I couldn't stop. My hands were shaking as I opened the first message. Lila, I'm sorry for everything. It began. I miss you sometimes, and I think about what we had. I wonder if I made a mistake by leaving. My heart sank. Did he really feel this way? I kept reading, each message feeling like a punch in the gut. One message said, I still think of you. I don't know if I'll ever feel that way about anyone else. Another said, it's hard to move on when I remember all the good times we had. Couldn't breathe. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. Ryan and I had been married for 3 years. I thought I knew him, thought we were happy. But these messages made me feel like a stranger in my own life. Did he still love her? Was I just second best? I closed the phone and put it back in the drawer, my hands still shaking. I sat down, trying to make sense of what I had just read. I felt hurt, confused, and scared. My mind was spinning with questions. Why did he write those messages? Did he regret marrying me? Had I been blind this whole time? I tried to calm down, but every time I thought about those words, I felt a wave of pain. I remembered all the little things Ryan did for me. Bringing me coffee in the morning, holding my hand when I was sad, telling me he loved me every day. But now, those moments felt like lies. Were they real? Or was he just pretending? That night, I couldn't look at Ryan the same way. At dinner, I barely spoke. I kept my head down, pushing my food around on my plate. I wanted to ask him about Lila, but I was too scared. What if he told me he still loved her? What if he admitted he wished he had never left her? Ryan noticed something was wrong. He looked at me and asked, Emma, are you okay? You seem quiet tonight. I forced a smile and nodded. I'm fine, I said, though my voice sounded weak. I didn't want him to know I was hurt. I didn't want him to know I had looked at his old phone. I felt ashamed, like I had done something wrong by finding out. The rest of the evening felt strange. Ryan was watching TV, laughing at some comedy show, but I couldn't join in. I kept thinking about the messages. I couldn't get Lila out of my mind. Who was she, really? What did she mean to him? I felt like I was living someone else's life. Like everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. After he went to bed, I stayed up, sitting alone in the living room. My heart felt heavy, and my mind was racing. I couldn't help but wonder if Ryan had ever truly loved me, or if I was just someone he settled for after Lila. The thought hurt so much that I felt tears in my eyes. I wanted to tell him how I felt. I wanted to ask him about those messages. But the words wouldn't come. I was too scared. Part of me wanted to pretend I had never seen them to go back to being happy. But I couldn't forget. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep this pain inside forever. As I sat there in the dark, I made a decision. I would find out the truth. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I couldn't keep living with these doubts. I needed to know if Ryan really loved me or if his heart still belonged to someone else. I went to bed with a heavy heart, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey I didn't want to take but knew I had to. The next day, I tried to act normal, but my heart was still heavy. I couldn't forget the messages I had read. I felt like they were burned into my memory, each word a painful reminder of Ryan's past with Lila. I kept telling myself, it's in the past, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Ryan was cheerful that morning, making coffee and asking about my plans for the day. I forced a smile and answered him, but inside, I felt distant. I watched him carefully, wondering if there were things he wasn't telling me. I thought about all the times we spent together and wondered if he ever thought of Lila in those moments. All day, I felt restless and distracted. My mind kept going back to those messages. I wanted to believe Ryan loved me, that I was his only choice, his one true love. But now I wasn't sure. The words he had written to Lila made me feel like a shadow, like I was living in her place, a replacement for the woman he couldn't have. Every time I thought of it, a painful question echoed in my mind. Am I enough for him? By the evening, I felt worn out from my own thoughts. I was quiet at dinner again, hardly speaking, lost in my worries. I could tell Ryan noticed. He looked at me a few times, his eyebrows drawn together, clearly wondering what was wrong. I wanted to talk to him, to ask him everything that was on my mind, but I was too scared. What if he told me he wished he was with Lila? What if he said he loved her more? After dinner, Ryan asked, Emma, are you okay? You've been so quiet lately. I looked at him and forced a small smile. I'm fine, I said, trying to sound normal. But I could see he didn't believe me. He looked worried, his face full of concern. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, to ask about the messages, but my heart was too heavy. I wasn't ready to hear his answer. That night, I lay in bed next to him, wide awake. I could hear his soft breathing as he slept, peaceful and calm. But I was far from calm. My mind was a storm of doubts and fears. I kept thinking, what if he loves her? What if he wishes he was with her? I felt trapped in my own mind, lost in a world of questions I couldn't escape. As the days went by, I found myself watching Ryan more closely. I looked for any sign that he was thinking of her, any small detail that might tell me what was in his heart. When he laughed, I wondered if he was thinking of the times he laughed with her. When he hugged me, I wondered if he was remembering her. My mind was full of comparisons, each one making me feel smaller, like I was living in someone else's story. One evening, as we sat together watching TV, Ryan reached for my hand. He held it gently, and for a moment, I felt the warmth of his love. But then the doubts came rushing back. Is he thinking of her? Does he wish I were her? The thought made my chest ache, and I pulled my hand away, pretending I needed to adjust my seat. I could see the confusion in his eyes, but I looked away, not ready to explain. Every day felt harder than the last. I felt like I was carrying a heavy weight, a secret that was too painful to share. Couldn't eat much and I couldn't sleep well. My mind was always busy with worries, questions, and fears. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I had to find a way to understand what was in Ryan's heart, even if I was scared of what I might find. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I made a decision. I couldn't live with these doubts anymore. I had to talk to him, had to know the truth, even if it hurt. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle over me. I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding my feelings. I would talk to Ryan soon. I would ask him about Lila and the messages. I didn't know what he would say, but I knew I needed to find out. I couldn't keep living with these shadows in my heart. I needed the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. The night I decided to talk to Ryan, my heart was racing. I felt nervous and scared. I didn't know what he would say, and I was afraid of the answer. But I couldn't go on feeling this way. I had to know if he really loved me or if his heart was still with Lila. Ryan was sitting on the couch, reading a book. I walked over and sat down next to him. He looked up and smiled, but he could see that something was on my mind. His face turned serious, and he put down his book, waiting for me to speak. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking, so I held them together to keep calm. Ryan, I began softly, I need to talk to you about something. He looked at me, his face full of concern. Of course, Emma. What is it? He asked, his voice gentle. I looked down at my hands, afraid to meet his eyes. I found your old phone, I said slowly. It was in the drawer in the hallway. I turned it on and saw some messages. I didn't mean to, but I read them. Ryan's face didn't show anger. Instead, he looked surprised and a bit sad. Messages? He repeated softly. What messages, Emma? I swallowed hard. Messages to Lila, I said. They were drafts. You wrote them but never sent them. Ryan's expression changed. I could see the surprise in his eyes, and he looked down, thinking about what I had just told him. He seemed calm, but I could tell he was a bit nervous too. I felt my heart beating faster, waiting for him to explain. After a moment, he looked up at me, his eyes soft but serious. Emma, he began, his voice steady. Those messages are from a long time ago. I wrote them years before I met you. I nodded, understanding that they were old, but the words still hurt. But why did you write them? I asked. You said you missed her, that you wondered if you made a mistake. Do you still feel that way? Ryan took a deep breath, and I could see the sadness in his eyes. Emma, it's not what you think, he said. I don't love Lila anymore. I haven't loved her for a long time. But back then I was confused. I felt guilty. Guilty? I asked, confused. Why? He looked down, thinking about how to explain. Lila and we were together for a long time. She was going through a hard time when we broke up. I felt like I left her when she needed me most. I wrote those messages because I felt guilty for leaving her. I listened, trying to understand. My heart felt heavy, but I wanted to believe him. So, you don't miss her? You don't wish you were with her? I asked, my voice shaking a little. Ryan reached over and took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. No, Emma, he said softly. I don't wish I was with her. I love you. You are my wife, my life. Those messages were just my way of dealing with my guilt. I never sent them because I realized it wasn't love I was feeling. It was regret. I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. His face was open, honest. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, and slowly, my heart began to feel lighter. You mean that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yes, he said firmly. You are the one I love, Emma. You make me happy every day. I would never trade our life for anything. Lila is in my past, and that's where she belongs. I took a deep breath, feeling some of the pain and doubt melt away. I still felt hurt, but I also felt relief. Ryan's words were clear and full of love. For the first time in days, I felt like I could trust him again. I'm sorry, Ryan, I said, my voice soft. I shouldn't have read those messages. I felt scared. I thought maybe I wasn't enough for you. Ryan squeezed my hand gently. Emma, you are more than enough for me. You are my everything. I didn't tell you about those messages because I didn't want to bring up old pain. I didn't want you to think that you weren't important to me. I nodded, understanding. It was a strange, painful journey to this moment, but I was glad I had finally asked. I realize now that love can be complicated, that sometimes the past can bring feelings of guilt or regret. But Ryan's heart was with me, and that was all I needed to know. We sat there together, holding hands in silence. I could feel the weight lifting, and a sense of peace filling the space between us. I knew there would be hard days, and there might be more doubts in the future, but I felt stronger now. I knew I could trust him, and I knew he loved me. Finally, I looked up and smiled at him. Thank you, Ryan, I said softly. Thank you for telling me the truth. He smiled back, pulling me close. Thank you for trusting me, Emma, he whispered. I love you. And in that moment, I felt whole again, knowing that we were ready to face the future together, with nothing left hidden between us. The night after Ryan and I talked, I felt like a weight had been lifted from my heart. For the first time in days, I slept deeply, feeling safe in his love. When I woke up, I felt a new kind of peace inside me. But I also knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of learning to trust again. Ryan was still asleep when I got out of bed. I watched him for a moment, noticing how calm he looked. I thought about everything he had said the night before, how he felt guilty, not in love, and how he truly loved me now. His words felt real, but I also knew it would take time for my heart to heal completely. I wanted to move forward, but I also wanted to make sure I never felt this kind of pain again. After breakfast, Ryan sat with me and we talked about our day. He seemed happy, like a small weight had also been lifted from him. I felt his love, and it made me feel warm inside. Still, a part of me was nervous about the future. I wanted to believe in his words fully, to trust without any fears or doubts, but I knew that would take time. As the days went by, Ryan tried to make me feel special in small ways. He brought me flowers one evening after work, surprising me with my favorite kind, roses. I smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness, and for a moment, I forgot all my worries. We shared a simple, happy moment together, and I felt our love growing stronger. One weekend, we decided to spend the day together, doing things we both enjoyed. We went for a long walk in the park, laughing and talking about small things. Ryan held my hand the entire time, and I felt his warmth and care. We talked about our dreams, the places we wanted to visit someday, and I began to feel more confident in our future. But sometimes, in quiet moments, my mind would wander back to those messages. I knew I shouldn't think about them anymore, but they had left a mark on my heart. One night, as we were sitting on the couch, I felt the doubt creeping back in. I wondered if I could ever be completely free of it. I wanted to tell Ryan about these feelings, but I also didn't want to hurt him again. I didn't want to bring up the past and open old wounds. Ryan noticed my silence and looked over at me, his face gentle and full of love. "Emma?" he said softly. "Are you okay?" I nodded, giving him a small smile. "Yes, I'm okay," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But inside, I knew I needed to say something. If I kept my feelings bottled up, the doubt would grow again, and I didn't want that. I had to be honest with him. Taking a deep breath, I looked at him and said, "Ryan, sometimes I still think about those messages. I don't want to, but they come back to my mind. I'm trying to let them go, but it's hard." Ryan nodded, his expression understanding. "I know, Emma," he said gently. "I know it takes time. I want to help you feel safe with me, to know that you are my only love." His words made me feel calm. I could see he truly wanted to help me heal. We talked for a while about how to make our love stronger, how to build trust again. He promised to be open with me about his feelings, and I promised to share my worries with him so we could face them together. From that day on, I started to feel a little stronger every day. I reminded myself of Ryan's love, of the promises we had made to each other. I focused on our present moments, on the happy memories we were creating together. Slowly, I began to let go of the fears and doubts. One day, while we were cooking dinner together, Ryan suddenly hugged me from behind, holding me close. "Emma," he whispered, "I am so grateful for you. Thank you for trusting me." I smiled, feeling his love surround me. "Thank you, Ryan, for being honest with me. I feel lucky to have you." And in that moment, I knew that our love was stronger than any past. The journey had been hard, but we were moving forward, hand in hand, ready to face anything together. We were stronger now, with nothing left between us but love and trust. And that was all we needed. In the weeks that followed, things started to feel lighter between Ryan and me. We kept our promises to each other. Ryan shared his feelings more often, and I told him when I felt insecure or scared. Felt good to have everything in the open. I felt closer to him than ever before, but I also knew that I was still healing. Trust doesn't come back all at once. It grows slowly, like a small plant that needs sunlight and water every day. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, Ryan looked at me with a gentle smile. "Emma," he said, "thank you for giving me another chance. I know it wasn't easy." I looked back at him and smiled. "Thank you for being honest with me," I replied. "I feel like I know you better now, like we are even closer." We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun go down. I felt calm, but I also knew that I wanted to keep working on our trust. I wanted us to grow even stronger, to never feel that doubt again. So I decided to share something with Ryan, something I had been thinking about since our first talk. "Ryan, I began, choosing my words carefully. I think it would help me if we could talk a little about our pasts. Just a little. I feel like if I know more about where we both came from, maybe I can feel more secure about our future. Ryan listened carefully, nodding. I understand, Emma, he said. I want you to feel safe with me, to know everything you need to know. I'll share whatever you want. Hearing this made me feel relieved. I knew that I didn't need to know every detail, but knowing he was willing to share showed me that he had nothing to hide. It made me feel more secure, like we were taking another step forward together. Over the next few days, we took time to talk about our lives before we met. I told him about my own past, about my old worries and fears. I told him about a time when I didn't believe in love, when I thought it was safer to be alone. Ryan listened with kindness, never judging. He told me that he was happy I shared these things with him, that he wanted to know everything about me. Ryan also shared more about his life with Lila, but not in a way that made me feel worried. He explained that their relationship had been a lesson for him, a time when he learned a lot about himself. He told me that while he cared about her once, he had moved on long before he met me. He had learned from his mistakes, and those lessons helped him be a better partner now. Hearing this brought me peace. It was like we had taken down the last wall between us. I no longer felt like there were secrets or things unsaid. I could finally let go of my doubts and trust that our love was real and strong. One evening, as we were getting ready for bed, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. Ryan was beside me, brushing his teeth, and I looked at him with fresh eyes. I realized that I didn't see him as the man with a past anymore. I saw him as my husband, my partner, someone who had chosen to be with me completely. I felt like I could finally let go of the old fears and focus on the future we were building together. As we got into bed, I took his hand and held it tight. Ryan, I want you to know something, I said softly. I trust you, and I love you. I don't want to hold on to any more worries. I'm ready to move forward with you. Ryan looked at me, his face full of warmth and love. Emma, I feel the same, he replied. You are my only love, my future. I'm so grateful for you. We lay there, side by side, feeling the deep connection between us. I knew that our journey had been hard, but it had also made us stronger. I felt a new kind of love growing, one that was based on trust, openness, and understanding. It was a love that could face anything because we had been through so much together. That night, as I fell asleep, I felt a quiet happiness in my heart. I knew that we had built something beautiful together, something that no past or old memory could break. We had chosen each other, fully and honestly, and I knew that was all we needed for a strong, happy future. I knew there would be more challenges in life, as there always are, but I was ready to face them with Ryan by my side. We had found a new strength together, and I knew that whatever happened, we would be okay. We had each other, and that was enough. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I continued to grow closer. I felt lighter, happier, and more at peace than I had in a long time. The pain and doubts from before were fading, replaced by trust and a deeper connection. Every day felt like a small step forward, and I was grateful for how far we had come together. One evening, we decided to go out for dinner to celebrate our anniversary. It was a special day for us, and I wanted it to be perfect. We dressed up and went to a nice restaurant in town. The atmosphere was warm and cozy, with soft lights and gentle music. Ryan held my hand as we walked in, and I felt proud to be there with him. He looked at me with a big smile and said, Emma, you look beautiful tonight. Hearing those words made my heart flutter, and I smiled back, feeling a deep warmth in my chest. We sat down and ordered our food, talking and laughing like we did when we first met. It felt wonderful to be in the moment with him, without any worries hanging over us. As we ate, we talked about our plans for the future. We dreamed about traveling together, exploring new places, and making new memories. I felt excited, imagining all the adventures we would share. Ryan listened to me with a look of pure happiness, and I knew he felt the same way. We were finally free to think about our future without any shadows from the past. After dinner, we decided to take a walk by the river. The night was cool, and the stars shone brightly above us. Ryan held my hand tightly as we walked, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It was as if the world was quiet, and there was only the two of us, together, happy and strong. At one point, Ryan stopped and turned to me. He looked serious but calm, his eyes warm and full of love. "Emma," he said softly, "I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for giving me the chance to show you how much I love you." I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but they were happy tears. I reached out and touched his face gently. "Ryan, I'm the one who is grateful," I replied. "Thank you for being open and honest with me, for helping me feel safe. I trust you completely, and I'm so glad we're here together." We stood there in silence, holding each other close. I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be, with the person I loved most. The river flowed quietly beside us, and I felt a deep peace settle in my heart. I knew, at that moment, that our love had become stronger, that we had built something beautiful together. In the weeks that followed, our life felt like a fresh start. We made it a habit to share our thoughts and feelings more openly, to keep everything honest and clear between us. There were no secrets, no hidden worries. Felt good to live this way, to have a love that was built on trust and understanding. One weekend, we decided to do something special together. We drove out to the mountains to go hiking. It was something we had talked about for a while, and I was excited to spend the day with him in nature. The weather was perfect, with bright blue skies and a gentle breeze. As we hiked up the trail, I felt alive and happy, full of energy and hope. Ryan walked beside me, smiling and laughing as we climbed higher. We talked about everything and nothing, enjoying each other's company. When we reached the top, we looked out at the view below, a beautiful landscape of trees, rivers, and mountains. It felt like a perfect moment, like all the hard times we had faced were behind us, and all we had now was a future full of possibilities. Sitting there on the mountaintop, I looked at Ryan and felt a deep, unbreakable bond between us. We had gone through pain and doubt, but we had come out stronger, more connected. I realized that love is not just about happy moments. It's also about facing challenges together, about learning to forgive, to trust, and to grow. Ryan took my hand and looked at me with a soft smile. "Emma," he said, "this is just the beginning. I want to share everything with you. All the adventures, all the moments, big and small." I smiled back, feeling my heart swell with love. "I want that too, Ryan. I want to walk this journey with you, through everything." As we made our way back down the mountain, I felt a sense of calm and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew there would still be ups and downs, but I was ready to face them with Ryan by my side. We had built something strong and lasting, something that could stand through any storm. Back at home, we sat together, enjoying the quiet of the evening. I felt grateful for every part of our journey, even the hard times, because they had brought us closer. I looked at Ryan and felt a deep sense of love and peace, knowing that I had found my partner, my best friend, my home. In the end, I realized that true love is about trust, understanding, and patience. It's about choosing each other every day, no matter what. And as I sat there with Ryan, I knew that we would keep choosing each other for all the days to come. We were stronger now, together, and I knew that was all we needed for a happy, lasting love.